next bit on functions, we're going to look at combining transformations. Nothing particularly new here from year 12. We're just going to be looking at doing multiple of these together and also including in the modulus parts that we've done recently. Okay. Quick recap on the year 12 transformation stuff. So if we've got a change inside the brackets, that's going to affect the x-axis. Okay, it affects the x-coordinates, and it does the opposite of what we think. If it's outside, obviously it affects y and does what we expect it to. Okay, so a quick recap, it shouldn't be anything too difficult, hopefully. Right, so example, we've got y equals f of x sketched, okay, and also we've got our two turning points that are going to be the coordinates we're going to focus on. 2 f of x plus 2. We're going to treat it like BIDMAS. Okay, so we'll deal with the x plus 2 part first. So inside the brackets, affects x and does the opposite. So that part there is going to shift left 2. Okay, so what will happen is 6, 4 will become 4, 4. And 2 minus 1 will become 0 minus 1. Then we'll do the 2 part outside the bracket so it affects y, and all we're then going to do is double our y values. Okay, so 4, 4 is going to become 4, 8, and 0 minus 1 is going to become 0 minus 2. Okay. So we can then sketch in what's going to happen, and we're going to look something like this. We can work out what that point of intersection is going to be. That's going to be minus 2 because we've shifted along 2, and we can sketch in what we need to. Okay, nice and simple. We do it in stages. I would always put your extra coordinates in that you don't need. You can always cross these out afterwards. We've used them to help us with the working, but you have got to do it in stages, guys. Okay, let's have a look at another one. So we've got the graph of y equals sketch graph of minus f of 2x. Okay, now first of all, it doesn't actually matter which way around we do this. I'm going to still think of BIDMAS. So we're going to do f of 2x first. Okay, so inside the brackets does opposite. So that's going to half our x values first of all. So 6, 4 is going to become 3, 4. 2 minus 1 is going to become 1 minus 1. Then the negative means we're going to negate all our y values. So 3, 4 is going to become 3 minus 4. 1 minus 1 is going to become 1, 1. Ignore those two. And I can think about what my graph's going to look like. Because I've had to negate all y values, the point where it starts from is going to end up here. The point where I end from is going to come down here. My y-intercept here is not going to change because I've just multiplied. So I can start sketching through what my graph's going to look like. Something like that. Okay. All we've got to do is think carefully about what's going to happen to each point and work our way through. Okay. Half x values, y values down as cool, and write them 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 down as cool. Always do. So you could always do write 6, 4 down and write 2 minus 1 down. And do these in stages rather than drawing them on your graph all the while. So 6, 4, half the x values will become 3, 4. Then negate the y value, become 3 minus 4. Then for this one, we'll go from 1 minus 1. Then negate all the y values, so it'll become 1, 1. That might be easier. Think again what's going to happen to the extremities of your graph as well. Okay. Second part, y equals modulus of f of minus x. So we'll deal with the minus x first. So we'll actually use that idea of looking at each point individually. So 6, 4, I'm going to negate my x values. Okay, so everything gets negated. So I'll have minus 6, 4, and minus 2, minus 1. Then when I do the modulus of my function, any negative y values, as we saw earlier on in the lesson, we're going to any of our negative y values are going to become positive. So this is still going to stay as minus 6, 4, but this point here is going to become minus 2, 1 instead. Okay, when we think about what our graph's going to look like, okay, what we've got is we're going to have, because we've flipped all our negative values, everything's got to be above the y-axis. Okay, then all of my x values are negated, so I can work my way through. Okay, that should go up that way. Ignore this bit here. Okay, so x values negated, then negative y's are flipped upwards. Okay, 2 points. Just work your way through your transformations. Okay, right. Have a pause. Have a go at that question for me, and then we will have a look at it. Okay, so this time you're not given a function. You're given its graph. You are told one key point at 4, minus 3, so that's what it's going to focus on. Okay, and think about also, hopefully, your extremities as well. So we'll apply BIDMAS to it. So we're going to start with 4 minus 3. So the first thing I'm going to do, opposite of what's actually happening, because it's inside the bracket, so I'm going to take 4 from my x values. So that's going to become 0 minus 3. And then I double all my y values. So I'm going to end up with 0 minus 6. So I'm going to have a point down here that's 0 minus 6. All of these other parts, that's just going to be moved in and moved up. So that's going to end up somewhere over there. Move across, move up. So what I'm going to end up with for that first part is a nice V shape. I can't work out what my point of intersection is because I do not have the actual function itself. Okay, the only bit you need to make sure you note down is that 0 minus 6. Okay. Second one, modulus of f of minus x. Okay, let's just get rid of that off the diagram. Okay, so again, we're thinking about our key value, we're thinking about the extremities of the graph. So I'm going to negate all of my x values first. So 4 minus 3 for this one is instead going to become minus 4 minus 3. And then when I do the modulus of all of that, I'm going to end up with minus 4, 3. So that's going to be my point, is now going to be minus 4, 3. Okay. So that's going to be, say, somewhere around there. Okay. And I'm going to have to think about what's happened. Well, because everything's been negated and shifted along, okay, when I negate my x values, obviously everything flips over. So this becomes this side, that becomes the other side, and then we get flipped upwards, okay, and we should end up with this sort of shape. What can be helpful, guys, is to sometimes sketch these as we go along. Okay, so that one's a little bit harder. So what's always a good plan is let's just sketch f of minus x first. Okay, so that's where every x value's been negated instead. So that's going to be our reflection over our y-axis. Okay, so everything gets negated over. So this part here is actually going to end up here. Okay, and what's going to happen is we're just going to come down and then across. Okay, because once we do that, what's that bit now? Once we do that, then when it comes to doing the modulus of it, okay, it's nice and simple because all we then need to do is anything that's below the axis comes above. And that's where we get that look. Okay, and then we know that this point on here is minus 4, 3. So you can always sketch in stages. Okay, sometimes that is much, much easier. Right, quick look at this. So sometimes we have 2 changes in X or 2 changes in Y. First one is 2 changes in Y. All you need to do is think about BIDMAS. Okay, so for this one, all we would do is you would multiply by 2 first and then add 1. Obviously, it makes a big difference which way around you do that. So you have to apply BIDMAS. You're not going to get multiple X transformations in your exam. Okay, but just so you're aware, because it's the opposite of what happens, what you're actually going to do is think about using the inverse of it. Okay, so what happens is you go the opposite of the order for BIDMAS. So you would take away 1 first and then half all your X values. Okay, same with this one. Obviously, it's just got the log natural function in it instead, but we're still looking at transformations mainly. Okay, so what you would do here is you would look at multiplying by minus a half and then adding a half. Okay, you don't need to know about the 2 X changes, the 2 Y changes. Just make sure you think about BIDMAS. Okay, so we multiply before we add. Okay, that's all we've got to think about, and we should be happy enough. Right, show my homework for me, and have a go at the questions stated for exercise 2.